Hello and welcome to the IARIA conference. My name is Dr. Joshua Sipper. Um, I am on the panel with several other members this year, and for the panel discussion, I chose to talk about a concept that I came up with not too long ago using intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and electromagnetic warfare methods for cyber signature development. And I wrote a paper that should be published soon in a journal. This just is the framework for it, just the conceptual model that I wanted to go through and explain today, and how I think these methods that have been used for some time in ISR and EW can be used for signature development, attribution, and for targeting in cyberspace. So here's a little bit about me. I won't read the whole thing to you, but my uh, my name is Josh Zipper. I work at the Air Force Cyber College. Have been for a little over a year now. Um, I used to work at the LeMay Center, still at Air University, um, another school at Air University, for about 8.5 years, doing cyber there. Did some application development and among other things. And then before that, I was at the 26th Network Operations Squadron. Did quite a lot of cyber there. I was also did a lot of cyber education and evaluation there, and exercise management as well for all the cyber exercises we did. Before that, I was with Lockheed Martin as an intelligence analyst, and before that, I was with the Air Force as an intelligence analyst. So uh, the type of intelligence analysis that I did was for electromagnetic signals exploitations intelligence. So that gets a lot into electromagnetic warfare. So my specialties in the cyber realm are really nested in intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and electromagnetic warfare. And that's where I got this idea for building a conceptual model to use the techniques that have been used for quite a long time in those fields to great effect to do the same types of things in cyberspace for attribution and targeting. So we'll just be going through a few things today. First, I'll give a little introduction to what the model is. Then we'll talk about the ASIM, or the analytical skills education model. Then we'll talk about SIPO, which is the cyber intelligence preparation of the environment process. Also, we'll tie in the cyber order of battle, or the COB model, as well as the cyber information database model, cyber warfare planning and battlefield management tool, and model, and also cyber signature conceptual model, which is the all of these models combined into one master model, so to speak. All right, so just to start off, I wanted to fill you in on some of the ways that ISR and EW have worked in the past. Both of their information related capabilities in the information warfare strategic concept in U.S. parlance, along with cyber and information operations. So those four disciplines altogether, EW, ISR, IO, and cyber, comprise information warfare, and the different operational effects that can be brought to bear and brought into combination to do those things are basically what comprise information warfare. But they have really well developed signature systems that have been developed over decades. And so, with cyber being a younger domain of and a younger environment in which some of these models have not yet been developed, I thought bringing in concepts such as the electromagnetic order of battle and joint intelligence preparation of the environment to formulate the same kinds of models and systems for cyber could be very helpful in doing the great attribution and targeting that have been taking place for a long time in EW and ISR. And the first and the complete model altogether is the CSCM, or the Cyber Signature Conceptual Model. It's really bringing together this huge suite of tools that draws on EW and ISR processes and constructs and concepts that have been developed over a very long period of time to help apply those same kinds of concepts, but in a different way to cyber signature development and targeting and attribution. So the first piece really has a lot to do with the cognitive domain of understanding within cyberspace, and uh, actually giving the skills and education, the the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and abilities to the analysts who would be doing cyber analysis in the environment, the information environment, to give them the necessary knowledge, skills, and abilities to be able to do that. So before you can ever analyze anything, you have to learn how to become an analyst, or at least take what innate abilities you already have and help that along. Make it better, refine it. And so this is a model to help in that process, to help uh, new analysts and even more seasoned analysts get better at analysis. But the whole concept is based off of a Bayesian understanding. So basically, looking at things that have already happened in the past and using that to help predict things that can and will happen in the future, and make some predictions and decisions based off of that understanding. So, starting with those concepts from a Bayesian understanding direction is really important, and that leads into comprehension, which leads to metacognition, or thinking about thinking. Or I put it here as theory. So we want to go from, this level of, okay, what do we know about this process already? What do we know about the things going on in cyberspace already? Now let's start thinking about thinking, doing some metacognition on those things so that we can do some actual application, which leads into the practice part of the model, where we're using things like modeling, case studies, other areas that we already have learned about over the years, events that have occurred, to push the practice. And then that leads into synthesis, which generally is where you can start taking all of the other parts that you have learned about and dug into up until this point, and actually start to create signatures for from the information environment, from analyzing the information environment. And then, of course, once that is all created, once that complete understanding of concepts, theory, practice, and synthesis have to a head, and you have a fuller understanding of how that process works, then you give feedback into the Bayesian understanding, because now you have new information that can be uh, looked at as established information that can be used again to refine the process and continue to learn and to add to the knowledge base and the wisdom base of the ASIM. All right. So once you have the cognitive base intact, in place, I should say, from a learning perspective. Then we move into what is being called by many the CIPO, or the cyber intelligence preparation of the environment process. And this is taken directly from the JIPO, but just which is the joint intelligence preparation of the environment process. And it's been molded to fit more neatly into the cyberspace and information environment uh, perspective. So first, step one, you define the information environment. And that has to do a lot with being able to look at the intelligence from all different sources. There are lots of different intelligence sources you can use. A lot of resources are being used today for intelligence from OSINT, open source intelligence. Also building a cyber order of battle, and then doing all of your planning to get ready to go into the second step of the process, which is to describe the impact of the information environment. And that has a lot to do with how complex it is, what it looks like, how it's structured, the different legal attributes of the whether or not you can do what you want to do in the information environment legally, and also attribution, knowing who, at least broadly, who you're going up against, who has attacked you, and who you are going to attack as well. So you are able to look and see who attacks different sides, or uh, any kind of exploitation, and be able to make some decisions based off of that. The third step is about evaluating the adversary, and that is going deeper into the cyber order of battle, actually looking at location details, parametric details, all of those things. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in some of the other models. Also, the possibility of retaliation. So, it's deterrence and coercion. Those are definitely a part of understanding the adversary and what their capabilities are. And then, of course, finally, we go into step 4, which is determining the adversary's courses of action, COAs. And that includes things like the defensive stance of the adversary, whether or not they might make a kinetic or non-kinetic response. Are they going to reply or retaliate in cyberspace only, or would they potentially drop a bomb or fire a missile or whatever it may be? And who supports them? Who are their allies? Who might actually join their team to potentially retaliate against us as we go through. But all of this leads to this holistic view of the information environment. It helps us to see very clearly and very fully and completely what the information environment looks like before we make decisions. So this is a very also cognitive process, but has a lot to do with being able to make very clear and predictive decisions within the information environment. All right, now this is getting more into the actual process and organization piece of the CSCM, which is one big piece called the cyber order of battle. And this essentially this database that includes all of the different things that you would need to do attribution and targeting in cyberspace. It includes 3 different areas: parametric data, so things like IP addresses and ranges, ports and protocols, boundary defense and all the appliances that are there, hosting. Then location data, that's actually dealing with different types of locations, so physical, logical, and relational type locational information to be able to determine exactly where in cyberspace and potentially even physically where the adversary is. So targeting can be carried out, and attribution is more, has a better foundation that way. And then finally, the enemy tactics, techniques, and procedures profile. This has a lot to do with, if we see an attack come from a particular enemy, a particular adversary, a lot of times they look very much the same. They have the same kind of signature code. They have the same way of doing things, the same timing, and that takes a while to build those kinds of tactics, techniques, and procedures profiles. But it's a really important part of building this database for a firmer, fuller understanding of who the adversary is and being able to do attribution and targeting. Also, Bayesian technique structure, being able to, again, take what we've learned from the past about the enemy and apply that to this TTP profile. And then also unit and personnel data, what units, what places, and what people are actually doing this, and being able to build profiles from a unit and actual personal, individual perspective is really important in being able to do attribution and targeting. So having a database like this would be a big part of this model. Also related to this model and very similar in some ways is the Cyber Information Database, or the CIDB model. It's akin to the electromagnetic information database that would be used in electromagnetic exploitations intelligence that I talked about a moment ago. That part of signals intelligence that I have been a part of for quite a long time. This is another database, but it's a lot more granular. So very much more specified for targeting and cyber weapon development, so that you make sure you're using the right weapon on the right people at the right time. And again, it gets down into things like system specifications. So more granular things like what the equipment is that they have, how it's configured, their network architecture, the different relationships between their organizationally and component wise as well. Then the logical location, so the routes, ports, data, all the resiliency. So if they have backups, if they have a storage area network, any of those things can be used for redundancy, resiliency, that we would need to take into account before actually formulating and targeting an attack. And then parametrics, and this has a lot to do with attribution targeting as well, but especially attribution, because we get into the IPs and IP ranges, the processing speeds and efficiency, ports and protocols, appliance and boundary defense, host and cloud database. So we're really looking for the weak points. We're looking for where the adversary is weak, and this CIDB model is a way to get there, to be able to find out that information and use it to our advantage. Next is getting into the actual planning of events. And this model, the Cyber Warfare Planning and Battlefield Management Tool, or the CWMPT, really it takes all of these different pieces and databases and brings them together along with an information warfare feed. And the information warfare feed would be bringing in the cyber information, the information operations information, the electromagnetic warfare information, and the ISR all source info, as well as all of the things we already talked about from the other databases like the CIDB and the COB. So it's an all source database, an all source tool that, I should say, that brings all the databases together and uses all source information to get a very granular, refined look at the information environment and to be able to plan cyber events and courses of action and battles, to actually manage cyber battles in cyberspace. So this is a very powerful tool that brings together all that information into one place, the CWMPT. And then finally, this is the actual cyber signature conceptual model altogether. And what we see here is, like I mentioned up front, the cognitive cog or wheel of it, which is the ASIM and SIPO processes, the organizational cog, which is the CWMPT itself, and the informational cog, which is the COB and the CIDB. And all of these cogs work together. They all depend on each other to be able to do the signature development and attribution and targeting that's necessary. So bringing together this full complement of numerous aspects of cyber information, I believe that that targeting and attribution can be done much better. I think having these tools and having all the information at their disposal is likely to be very, very helpful for cyber operators in the future to be able to prosecute warfare, keep it organized, and be able to do attribution and targeting in a way that they have not been able to do previously. Again, this is a theoretical model. It's just proposed based off of the actual practice of the same types of attribution and targeting processes in other disciplines, the disciplines of EW and ISR. So I hope that you understand that it is just theoretical, but I think that it could be developed in such a way to help cyber operators across the field. And that ends my presentation. I hope that you got something out of this. I appreciate your time and hope that you have a great conference. So it's really great being here, and happy I was able to bring some information to you during the IARIA conference this year for the cyber portion. Thank you so much. My name is Joshua Sipper again, Dr. Josh Sipper from the Air Force Cyber College, Air University at Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. Thank you again for your time, and have a great day. Goodbye.